Hello, everyone. I thought I'd keep the intro as short as possible tonight. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a new year, and it is time for another chat on a Sunday night and just see what's happened over the last couple of weeks. Now, obviously, it's been a very busy period since I spoke to you last. We've had a number of new launches, including these. We have the new HDZero goggles. And there's been a huge amount going on in the world of FPV, drones, and all of the usual stuff as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about it tonight. Now, as always, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's joined us for another one of these strange sessions, as we tend to do on a Sunday night. However, there is a lot to go over, and I'm going to try and share with you, as always, just my genuine, open and honest thoughts on what the situation has been. Now, there's been a lot really since we streamed last. We have had that launch of the HDZero goggle, as I've already said, and I managed to just get the video done for that. I was lucky to have a little bit of free time over the Christmas period, a bit of downtime, and that allowed me to get that finished, and that was a much bigger task than I anticipated. There was a few late nights on that one, just getting that video ready to go, because there was so much to talk about on this product. It was crazy. Let me just move over a little bit. I'm not in the middle. I've just noticed. This video was nearly an hour long, and I'll be honest, I really struggled to keep it as short as it was because there was so much to discuss. And I think we covered most of it. I think I got most of the details where I wanted them to be, and most of the comments have reflected that. I'm really pleased to see how the video's gone. I don't really do this to care too much on how the video comes across in the sense of what the view rates are like, but it has done okay, especially considering it's a 1 hour video on a set of FPV goggles. But there was a lot of stuff to go over on it. We've also had, finally, people starting to get hold of these, including me. I finally have a VRX module. Haven't tested it yet. I haven't really even looked at it yet. I haven't had a chance, and I'll talk about that a bit more as well. And we've also had a lot of noise around the new firmware update for the DJI FPV system, the whole controversy about the remote controller, where I put a quick video out on talking about that a few weeks ago. And now we've had that update as well. And we've got the new update, and I've put a video out on that, which I filmed yesterday and put out today, on the overall RF behavior of O3. And I'm going to talk about a few little questions that I've seen on that as well. Now, before we get into that, I just want to say a few things. And as always, if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat. I can see it roaming away there next to me. So if there is anything you guys want to know, hello, James, how are you? Please do let me know, and I will try and answer them as I move along. Now, over the last few weeks, it has been a challenge to get some of the things done that I wanted to do. Most of the content we've had in place has been actually in the can for some time. It's been stuff I've sort of been working on in the background very slowly, and then I've managed to push them out. We're getting to the stage, and you'd notice this week there's been a lot less, because there's a few videos which have been in the boil for a while, which aren't finished yet. I'm managing to grab an hour here and there to be able to try and get them done, and they're going to be coming out over the next couple of weeks. But it is going to be a much slower period moving forward, simply because of the amount of time I'm able to dedicate even in my free time to this, because of family and everything else. As always, this is just a hobby to me. What I do here is simply a bit of escapism away from some of the family most of the time. I think we all try to do a bit of escapism from the family. But more than anything, it's a way for me to sort of express some of my other abilities in different ways. But the plan moving forward is obviously to try and put out content that is not done for the sake of it, and is done for a reason. And that's really going to be the plan. And it might be one a week. It might be one a month. I don't know how that looks at the moment. I've been lucky that I've got very good at doing this very fast. So, for instance, if I take that HDZero video, I'm at the stage where I can do a lot of that overhead stuff very quickly. You know, I can sit down for half an hour and smash all of that out these days. The real time comes in is in the background testing and the understanding. And there are periods where I'm free late in the evenings to have a play with it once the kids go to bed. And there are times when I'm not. And that's the basic reality. And then obviously we have the weekends. And the weather here has been atrocious the last few weeks. It has been nothing short of insanity. The flights I showed on the HDZero video, I managed to get on Saturday morning just before launch. Or was it the Sunday morning? I woke up and it actually was dry. It has been horrific in the UK. Today, it was horrific again. It has just been shocking. We had an hour, I think an hour and a half of dry time here down in South Wales, and it was just the puddles around. I wasn't willing. I did say I might run out and try and get a flight in. It'll be nice to just go and do one, but the reality is it wasn't worth the risk. I'd have destroyed the aircraft. Had I crashed, or when I crashed, it would have been in 3 inches of water. The fields are just sodden here now. So that is the plan moving forward. But look, there is more to come. There's a lot of stuff I've got planned, which is sort of slow burning, where I can grab an hour and get it finished. I will do. But there is some specific stuff I wanted to cover. And the video actually that I did yesterday, it went together quite nicely. There are periods where you do a bit of content and the video goes together easily, and there are periods where you do a bit of content and it's difficult. And the O3 video, which we're going to talk about, went together very nicely, and I was able to pretty much get it all wrapped up in like an hour and a half after all of the testing, and then we were done. And that video covers a lot of stuff that I've wanted to talk about on O3 for some time. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. And it's definitely worth checking out the game of whack-a-mole that you can play with O3 with other systems, and just how dynamic it is when it moves around the band. If you haven't seen it, that is well worth a look on just how it moves around. Let me just grab my phone. My phone has just made a noise. Let me just quieten that off. But yeah, it does play quite the game of whack-a-mole. You move a signal in and it moves O3 around. And what's quite funny about it is it will actually split the goggles and RC telemetry carriers in half and put them either side of a signal as well. It's quite amusing to watch. But I just wanted to share with you an update on that. Now, it's been, as I've said, I'm going to say it probably for the 5th or 6th time, it's been a crazy period. The big launch obviously was the HDZero goggles, and as I've said, I'm really pleased with how the video has gone. I'll be honest, I was a little surprised to see that JB didn't have a video or a set. It isn't something I asked about, if I'm honest. I will be clear that I only knew who I had goggles, and I knew one other person had a set. But other than that, I'm not involved with agreements with other creators or anything like that. But I was a little surprised that JB didn't have a set earlier. It's not really for me to get involved in that one. The only real thing I'll say on it, and I have said this elsewhere as well, is I think you've got to be mad, or not mad, that's not the right term, but I think look, JB is the gorilla in the room. End of. Massive. And look, his opinion is, he may like, he may hate, and look, there is a lot you could complain about on these, and I did go through that on my video as well, but I am surprised he wasn't there on day one. But nonetheless, what I do know is JB will deliver a video and a review and an opinion that more people will probably listen to than the rest of us put together, including Bot Grinder. And I'm not saying anything bad about Bot. I think he's fantastic. And myself, I think my video was overall the highest viewed on the release. when I checked last. Not that that matters, but I did notice that. But at the end of the day, the reach JB has is enormous. And yeah, look, I'm really interested to see his thoughts. At the end of the day, everyone has an opinion. Some will be good, some won't. I did find that video difficult, and I was open about that on the HDZero group. For those who were in the beta test group, I wasn't particularly happy with the video in any shape or form. I think I found it a hard slog, that video, and I think it is when it's an hour long. I think that's the problem. Any video that goes over 20 minutes is just so difficult to edit and get right. And it's not time, it's just it feels too much. And I wasn't particularly pleased with the output on that one. But it was what it was. It was too late in the day for me to do anything about it, basically. I didn't have enough free time in my spare time to be able to go back and do it all again. So it went out. It went out as it was. But yeah, overall, I am pleased with how it went. It was a good video. And the product is good. You know, I've had a lot more time to spend on the HDZero goggles. And so far, you know, especially in the workshop playing, and they're a very, very good product. They really are. Yes, there's things that could be better, and if I'm going to be straight right now, I think the firmware is a bit up and down today. The guys at HDZero are trying to do so much at the moment. They're just trying to get everything level. Today, firmware is a bit all over the place. Just before the live stream, I grabbed half an hour and I was trying the backpack functionality, and that's not working at the moment. So we're waiting for that, and I'm going to try and do something on that as well. But look, genuinely, hand on heart, I wouldn't have said the comments I would have said without them. Basically, I'm going to have to sell the O4Xs. I see no reason to keep the O4Xs now with these. I just don't see the point. The only reason I would have to keep the O4Xs would be for a second ride-along goggle. Maybe for my son. He's a bit young. Maybe, though. Maybe we go down that road, but it's an expensive goggle to have laying around as a ride along, but we're going to have to see. But anyway, that's that on that. Now, before we get into all of the stuff, I am going to just catch up on the chat. I did see Sean there. Hello, Sean. How are you? I did see... I joined at the wrong point. I did see a question just now. Hey, Mad, I just got a custom 2.5-inch Whoop. Flew it for the first time today with the O3A unit in a 2.5-inch. Nicely done. And there's some intermittent loss of power. Any clue why it might be? What battery size are you running on that? O3 is really, really power hungry. Really power hungry. Have I been... I'd like to know how the O3A unit is powered. 1400 milliamp hour 6S. Oh, that should be all right. Has he got a back on board? What do you mean power issues? Power issues on O3 or power issues on the quad itself? Ian W. was great. Yeah, I think the problem with a long video is you end up going back over it so much in the edit. It becomes a fight in the end, and it's a bit like it's a bit like I suppose like 10 rounds in a boxing ring, because you're having to just keep adding bits in. And the worst part about that video was I kept thinking of things I need to put in. I'd written on a sheet of paper all the stuff I wanted to talk about literally beforehand, and then obviously we had the downtime between Christmas and New Year, and I had a chance then to take a bit of time out and go, right, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and I just kept finding bits to add to it, and it becomes like a 10 rounds boxing match, especially an hour's video. But what I'm super pleased about is we managed to get that views on an hour's video. It's not something I want to do very often at all. However, yeah, I did do it with analog with Peppermint's Fusion module. He lent me his analog module because I couldn't get one in time to do the HDZero video. And the very kind is, I need to get that boxed back up and send it back to you, Peppermint. It's a very good module. Thank you, my friend, as well. I really do appreciate it. I'll put a little gift in for you as well. Peppermint's module got me over the line on that one. But I haven't flown them extensively. I don't fly analog much anymore. I'll be honest. It isn't something I use a lot of. Yeah, so really, there's been a lot. So we've got the HDZero goggle. If there is any questions on these, please do ask. I think a lot of the questions probably have been answered. I don't really want to spend the stream talking about them completely. But if there is any questions, I'm here to talk about them. As you can see, we've got the True RC antennas. Great goggle, great package. They're not perfect. I think I was as critical, I think, as I could fairly be. They're a bit heavy, they're a bit noisy, and the software is a bit slow at times, and the module on the side gets in the way of your hands. That's literally all I can criticize these goggles for. And as I said, with the optics, I can't get them end-to-end clear, but not remotely like any of the other stuff. You know, they are 95% perfect, end of. And, you know, if I'm going to give a rating on, say, the 04Xs, they're probably 80% perfect. Where the 04Xs win is value with the analog receiver built in for analog users. And for me, the optics on the 04X are just a little bit better. A little bit. I can get the 04Xs end-to-end clear, where I can't quite get these. But look, for me, these are 95% perfect, which is incredible, considering this is the first time they've made a set of goggles. You know, but if I wanted to be hypercritical, they're a bit noisy, they're a bit heavy, they're a bit large, and the menus are a bit slow. That's not, none of that is critical. It's as simple as that. So that's the HDZero goggles. If there is any questions, guys, I will answer them as soon as I can. Hi, Joe. How are you, my friend? Hope you're well. Oh, thank you, Mike Bergman, for the super chat. I appreciate that, my friend. I really do. I think the difference in the 04X and HDZero screen is 16:9, 4:3. Yeah, that may be absolutely the big difference. Actually, Joe, that's a very good point, and that's one to make into account. The 04X is a 4:3 screen, which means you're not going to get the same vignetting on the side. You're not going to get the same cutoff, whereas the HDZero is wider. Now, when you look through the HDZero compared to the 04X in a 4:3 image, the HDZero is a smaller image because you're having to use 16:9 screens in 4:3, but it's not massive. To be honest, genuinely, they are outstanding. Have I got the Walksnail VRX? Well, that has just arrived, and we will go on to the Walksnail. If we go to the overhead, yes, it has arrived. I'll give you guys a bit of a look for those who haven't seen it. Can also comment on some things, actually. So obviously the Walksnails have arrived. It took a lot longer to come. Just open complete clarity. Walksnail have sent me this module for free. I have not paid for it. It won't influence my opinion, but they have sent me a review sample. Yeah, just some initial thoughts. Now, I really have barely opened this. I genuinely haven't. This came, I think, Monday, but I just haven't been able to even get near it, even when I've had 5 minutes. It's bigger than you think. It really is bigger than you think. It's heavier than you think as well. It's not terrible, but it's just a little bit larger overall. Let me grab the HDZero module. Just to put it side by side, you know, it is a bigger lump. It's thinner, definitely thinner overall on the top section. So it will fit on the front of the goggles. But yeah, it's a lump of a thing. Like, let me just come in. There we go. Now, obviously, we've got the 2 patch antennas on the front that they include, the 2 SMAs, RP SMAs on the top. We've got back, playback, or record, what that might ever be. We've got a joystick, we've got the bind button, and then we've got HDMI underneath, DC power, SD card. Really that simple. You know, there really is nothing phenomenal here. Let me just refocus that slightly because that focus doesn't look particularly great. There we go. We've got a fan on the front. And that camera will readjust itself now. And that really is about it. You know, that is the big thing. Now, as I've said, if you put it side by side, it is taller, but it is narrower. I haven't got scales up here to weigh the two together. Just some comments. I did see a post on Facebook where someone said they used this on their goggles and 20 minutes later it burnt their goggles out on the HDMI input. I'm not convinced it was this module. I haven't tested the HDMI port. There is a specification for HDMI that these things need to conform to. Let me just move that out the way. So, for instance, there's a power... There's 5-volt lines, basically, in HDMI. You've got the data lines, which are obviously... a high and low. What you've got is pairs of data lines, so they're actually like RS485, so you need to use a differential probe if you're going to measure them. You can't ground them out or you'll damage them. My brain has fried on the actual term. A minute, it'll come back to me. The differential lines, basically, anyway. And then you've got a couple of voltages on the main power lines. Now, those voltages, I think, should never go over 5.2, 5.3 volt. I think that there is a specification for it under HDMI 2.0. And I'm guessing the balanced lines are... I'm not sure what voltages they get to. But I haven't done any testing myself yet. I'm not going to rush to instantly put it on the oscilloscope and see what it's doing. We've seen one person mention it. If we've had a few people mention it, I might put it on and have a look what's going on. But as I've only seen one person, I think it's fairly safe to say that one set of goggles dying doesn't really constitute loads. Don't get me wrong. If I see lots of posts of Fat Sharks dying, I don't really care. We know they have bad HDMI ports. Pretty much every Fat Shark goggle has the potential to have a bad HDMI port, but this guy's was a set of Sky Zones, I think it was, or Cobras, and they failed, which was quite weird. I would be... if there is more hyper... but none of them have been HDZero. Sky Zones. Interesting. Look, there is a real possibility this is a Sky Zone problem as well. The thing to remember is... I don't know what the size of the group was that bought HDZero in total, but I do know the early numbers were like 4,000 or 5,000 modules. That doesn't mean a great number of people using them. And HDZero grew from there, and we didn't see too many problems. If we start seeing lots of problems on these, I might get it onto the oscilloscope and have a look at the levels and just see what's going on. But I'm not expecting there to be an issue. I'd be more inclined to think goggle manufacturers have a problem. Now, something I have seen on the module, just to go back to the overhead a minute, is I have seen a few of these clips break off. There's some really nice brackets out there available, and I've got one set here, which I printed, and I'm going to talk about printers a little bit tonight. I printed these on the Ender 3. I've been... something I've been playing with for a month and a half. Again, on the Ender 3 is just getting the Ender 3 S1 updated. But I also just got the Clipper Sonic pad for it. If you haven't seen it, we'll take a look at that in a minute. And I been tuning that with Clipper, and I printed these off. And the idea of these is that you stick these to the back of the module, and then you can then mount it on the front of the HDZero goggles. Now, I have seen a few people mounting it on a mount here, and I have seen a few of these break, apparently. So what I would suggest is, if you're going to use this mount here, I would print your own mount to bolt to the goggle rather than this included one, is what my advice would be. There he is, Heavy Physics. There's the man who created these mounts on the HDZero Discord. He did a really nice job on these. They're really nice. There is a screw there, so you can undo that screw and that mount comes off. I have done that already. Let me just find the right head. Here we go. You can just unscrew this and it will pop off, just to show you. So you can put your own mount on. And look, this is a fairly easily 3D printable part, but I have seen a few of these break. Now, what I don't know is if was it already damaged, or people using larger screws, or people damaging it already. But what you could do is just create your own design for that, including that already, is what I would do. I have seen some nice options where people are trying to mount this on the front of the HDZero goggles and retain the ability to use these patch antennas. So what you're then talking is a mount I've seen that brings all of this out. Because remember, we've got the rail system, which I think, you know what, genuinely, I think this rail system is absolutely fantastic. It really is so simple. It's crazy. It's worth printing some nut spinners for your nuts, which I did in TPU. Well, hey. And then you can just slide these off. It really genuinely is so easy. It's crazy. And then you've got these that will just clip on or slide on, whichever way you want to do them. You can push them on at the bottom and clip them over the top, or you can slide them on whichever way you think works best. Is it that one there? Or does that go on? No, I think that's the other side. That's the angle is wrong. Oh, I broke my one. I got a second set. There we go. There was me saying my printer was great and it broke the filament. That's what happens. That's why you don't snap them on, okay? You slide them on. Although I printed mine at a different angle to AV. He printed them in a different one, but yeah, you basically, no, it's definitely that way. You slide them on, not, I printed these flat, which doesn't give them the strength. There we go. These are they probably need to be a little bit bigger. Yeah, I think I printed them a bit tight. They're definitely a bit tight, this batch. But yeah, you clip them onto the front and then you can mount the module on there. I think, was it that way? Is it that way? I've possibly printed these a little bit tight. I have got a second set because I printed two sets, but I printed them different because I printed them flat that way, which you can see because that's the thing, which means there's no strength here because the layers have gone that way. I think he printed, I think, AV, didn't you print them that way? Didn't you print them that way on the bed? I think you did, didn't you? You suggested doing it. That way you get the strength on the clip rather than the other way around. Yeah, I printed them flat like that. But the problem with doing that is there's no strength in the clip. Although that one, these won't break. This one won't break. So I got a spare set. Don't worry. Not all is gone. There's another one. That's another one of the same. So that's the situation with them. But yeah, what's the name of the 3D print? I will. So they can put, so the VRX can sit flush, and the idea then is that the VRX sits flush, and then you can also mount the other goggles on the sides. W1, what about the new Fusion board version 3.3 for Steady View from SkyZone? There's a new Steady View X as well. To be honest, no, I probably won't test them. I'm not a big analog pilot. I believe, look, my understanding on the Steady View receiver upgrade is if you were having problems, they've improved it. I've not had any problems on mine. So I can't really say I have a problem. I didn't have all of the problems they were having on those other with the rolling image. Some people were having problems, some people weren't. I think if you're not having problems, then don't worry about it. Let me just make sure I get the logo the right way up. Otherwise, I'll get destroyed by our friends over in Canada for putting the logos on upside down. How do you compare the HDZero to the HDO2 optics? I think the HDZero is better. In order of optics, okay, if you want me to give you an order of optics on goggles, here we go. So, order of optics. For me, personally, okay, this is only personally, O4X and these are together. These have some of the best optics for me, personally, I've used, okay? Then it's these. Then it's the HDO2s. Then it would be the V2 goggles. Then in the level of poorness, it would be Orqas. And then at the very bottom, it would be the DJI goggles too, because they are shocking. Are the HDZero optics better than the Goggles 2? Yeah, by a country mile. Okay. The Goggles 2 are really nice, just only in the center of the screen for me. What I cannot do with the DJI Goggles 2 is ever lose that convergence. So you have the convergence of the lenses. I can never fully make that go away, and I can't get them clear end to end. They're so fuzzy at the sides, it's crazy. I have seen something this week, though, on the fogging on the DJIs. People are recommending Zeiss Lens Anti-Fogger. That helps a lot. The Goggles 2 optics, for me, are that bad. Um, 13 FPV, we don't know. So the question is, just curious on the Walksnail goggles, is antenna 1 transmitting? That one. If you notice, that's only got one antenna on because I was doing some bench testing, as you saw in yesterday's video, and I only ever put the transmitting antenna on when I'm doing that. Do I think it receives? Probably capable, yes. I don't know for sure, though. DJI, yes. DJI basically multi in, multi out. The avatar system isn't quite the same as the way DJI works. And we don't have proper published documentation from an FCC report to confirm how it works. What we're able to do with DJI is read the lab test results from the FCC filings, which I understand, and I can then give you an idea of how the antenna chains are set up. The term they use is chains. So you have chain 1 and chain 2. So chain 1 will be a TX and RX, and chain 2 will be a TX and RX, or it'll be a TX and TX and RX and RX. And it'll tell you how the chains are set up. DJI usually label them chain 0 and chain 1, which is the 2 separate sets of antennas. So for instance, on the O3E unit, there's a chain 0 and a chain 1, 2 antennas, both transmit, both receive, both capable on 2.4 and 5 gigs. What we don't have on Avatar is proper FCC filing tests to tell you how it actually works from a deep level. Now, I could say something more on that, which would be a bit more controversial, but I won't. But all I can tell you is, as per the FCC filings, there is not full documentation available that makes sense. I hope that answers that question. So I genuinely don't know. I suspect it probably doesn't receive. Probably. And I tell you why, actually, just as a matter of interest. If you go and watch the Avatar Deep Dive RF vid, you'll notice that the goggles carrier is solid. It doesn't pulse like the DJI carrier. So the DJI telemetry carrier from the goggles to the ear unit is very much FHSS. It's bouncing all over the place. So if you watched yesterday's video, I showed you what the different carriers did. So you had the large OFDM carrier. Let me just put something up just to show you. And in fact, I'll have a piece of footage to show you this now, actually. File Explorer is not responding. That's a good time for File Explorer to play up on me. Let's have a look at this one. Let me just mute this because we don't want any sound. Let me just see. Okay. Right, let me just put this up. Desktop. So, okay, what you've got here in this bit of video, okay, guys, is you've got the DJI 3 carrier. These here are the telemetry carriers from the remote and the goggles, and then this here is Avatar HD. Now what you've actually got here is 2 carriers, just to show you. So this carrier you can see here, right? I know this mouse point is quite hard to see, but look, you've got a carrier right here sticking out above the top, and you can see the white lines coming down. That is actually the telemetry carrier from the goggles being transmitted back to the ear unit. It always on Avatar transmits over the top, but what it is a solid carrier. It isn't pulsing like the O3 telemetry carriers here. This is a game of O3 whack-a-mole, look. But it's a solid carrier that stays transmitting all of the time, and as such, I think the chances are that it is transmitting all of the time. It's as simple as that. Randonko. Did you get an upgrade phone for the goggles too? Ramdonko, every blade of grass. Good work, Mads Tech. Hope Andy RC is in your circle of trust. It was just a thought. I do know Andy. I think using the term a friend is hard. I would class Andy as a friend. One of my FPV friends is the term I will use. You know, calling someone a friend is a bit challenging. I've got friends who are friends. I got, but Andy is certainly what I would class one of my FPV friends. We have spoke about many things in the past. I hope he's all right. I haven't spoke to him for a few weeks. I might send him a message just calling him some abusive names as I always do and check he's all right. But every blade of glass, I'm a bit confused. Can you explain, Ram? This is the usual start time for the stream. Yeah, I'm probably going to be a bit early these days, a little bit more. Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's a good guy, is Andy. So that's the situation. So really, look, we should get on to some subjects. So the O3 thing, I've put the video out. I've shared with you guys in that video the situation as I know it. Now, there has been some questions which I need to go back over and check, hopefully at some point in the next couple of weeks. Is number one, how does it behave around analog with regards to its whack-a-mole behavior? And what I mean by that is, if I just show you back on the desktop, this is a good video to show you because O3 is really good at moving its carriers around other carriers. So again, just for those watching this and you don't understand, this large OFDM carrier here is the video signal from the O3 air unit. These carriers here are the RC control link and telemetry, and they are what is coming from the goggles and the remote. And this carrier here is some data carriers you can see pulsing around on the band. Now, what you'll see in a minute is the avatar carrier appear, which I use to sort of play the game of whack-a-mole. Let me just get it forward. Here we go. So this carrier you now see appear here is avatar. And if you just notice there what happened, right? I put the carrier basically there on top of those ones, the RC carriers. And when it comes in, just watch what these carriers do. There it comes. And it then splits them either side, look, of that carrier. So O3 is really clever at playing whack-a-mole and moving itself around to interference. So again, you've got it there. And when I move the avatar carrier, this one here, because this is the avatar, I'm using this as sort of a, budge over, get out the way. When we move this in a minute, it will then move the other carriers out the way as well. And it's quite an interesting game when you start to play it and you watch its behavior. Let me just forward to the point. Right, there we go. So what I'm going to do now is move this carrier on top of that carrier there. So you'll see that happen now in a moment, which is the O3 carrier. I've moved it on top of it there. Oh, no, actually, I turned it off. Sorry. What I did then was turn avatar off, and DJI went back to 50 megabits a second. So a wide carrier. There we go. So it's now we start playing the game of whack-a-mole. So what we'll do, there you go. Avatar comes in. DJI drops down to 20 megabits a second. So notice that. DJI is at 50 megabits a second. Second, the other carrier comes on the band. It drops to 20 megabits a second. But these carriers are still up here out of the way. And then I move this one up to here, I think I do. And then you'll see there you go. And then it goes, oh, no, we're going to move them down to here. I'm going to move that to there. And I'm going to move the video down to here as well. So it has this dynamic behavior where it moves it around. And I'll be honest, it is incredibly impressive. It is the most dynamic FPV system I have seen, period. It is well ahead of most of the other things. Now, Avatar HD will actually do this in auto as well. Not quite as clever as DJI, but it does do it in auto as well. But DJI does have this thing. Now, obviously, with the new update, I talked about the remote control behavior and the changes that it now doesn't lose signal automatically when you lose goggles. But there are a few things I just want to mention on that. I've seen a number of people say that they've tried unpowering the goggles and it kills the remote signal. Yes, it will. That is normal. DJI O3 is a networked system. So if you turn off the power to the goggles, it will turn off other stuff. It's as simple as that. So if you turn off the goggles, it's going to turn off the remote signal as well. Ram, Andy's covered HT? Head tracking? What do you mean by HT, Ram? No. Look, you can't... Expand says, so you can't be blasted out. In theory, no. In theory, it should move about. It should move around. Now, I just want to catch up on the quick super chat. I saw one come in, and I don't want to miss it. I want to say a thank you for that one. John H., thank you for that, my friend. You fly analog R6 5843. What channels did the DJI camera drones use? My mate's just purchased a Mini 2. Will the Mini 2 use 5843 public? Right. This is the problem with DJI's consumer drones. They don't stick to channels. They move around on bands of frequency, just like I've just showed with 03. So the only way you're going to know is have a look at what band that drone works in. So if we just take a quick look, did you say it was the Mini 3? Let me just check. Mini 2. So if we just check on the DJI Mini 2 for a moment. Camera drones, Mini 2. I'm just going to go to the desktop. We'll go to specs. We need to see the frequency range that DJI say it's capable of transmitting on. So 5725 to 5850. In theory, then, at 5843, you're right on the top end. So you may have problems. You may have problems. If he was, though, to get an FCC method and not have the CE method, he would have the ability to use manual channel mode, and he would then be able to set a lower channel if you were flying at the same time. If you were to find a way of getting it into FCC, and there are ways out there of doing that, such as drone tweaks. So that would be worth a look if you want to get around it. I hope that answers that question. Which SDR equipment were you using? I saw it was erroneous software, hardware. It is both. So it is the erroneous Spectrum V6. Spectran V6, I should say. That is the hardware and software that I'm using. The erroneous Spectrum V6. Yeah, head tracking. Yeah, I haven't done a lot of head tracking. Does it? Interesting, Hypo FPV. ExpressRS has a habit of destroying the connection. Does she let you select channels R1 to R8? Yeah, and that's correct. And DJI 03, as you have just seen there in that video, right? 03 does not conform to traditional channels in auto. It will just move around the band as it sees fit. So when 03 is in auto, R1 to R8 mean nothing. It just moves around in a set frequency band. Now, there is a set of channels that 03 conforms to when in manual mode. And I did put a chart together for this, which I haven't published yet. I just haven't been able to get it finished. Let me just find it. I'll show you guys. I have put together a very basic chart on this, which I started months ago, which shows the frequency allocation of 03. 03 doesn't have remote ID in it, as far as we are aware. Exlu. I think that's how I say your name. I don't know for sure. I apologize. But yeah, look, this is so... Look, 03 and Avata are exactly the same, by the way, so they behave exactly the same. As in, what's telemetry that is sent from goggles to remote controller to O3 air unit? What's in that data? We do not know is what is in that data. That's the absolute truth of the matter. DJI send control link data back. You have packets for the two-way link, because remember, DJI has error correction, forward error correction, and packet retries. So what you have is packet acknowledgement, packet error correction, and packet retries. So that's why you've got that two-way link. So a packet is sent from the goggles to the ear unit. The ear unit receives that packet, sends a signal back saying packet has been received. But if it hasn't received the packet properly, it can send a signal back saying, actually, I didn't get that. Can you send it again? And then it will try to send that packet again. There could also be any other amount of data included in that. We simply don't know. I'll come back onto that when I just finish on this. So that's the chart there. I'm going to put this out properly. I'll get this finished at some point, and I will get it out. But what you can see is O3 does conform to some channels, but remember it's 1 to 7. There's a big gap at channel 3. Mostly O3 follows in 20 and 10 megabits mode raceband-ish. So it basically follows 1, 2-ish, 4, 5, 6, 7, but you'll notice there is some overlap a little bit here and there. So O3 in manual mode will sort of conform to raceband. So what I can say with O3 is if you put, say, a channel's worth of separation apart from 3, you'll be fine. So the thing to remember is channel 1 and 2 are fine. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are one step out. And as long as you put an additional channel of separation in, you should be fine. So, for instance, if you were flying raceband 4, on DJI, you want to be on 2 or 4. Maybe 2 or 5. But as long as you follow that, that will give you an idea. Mike Bergman, I know you've moved on already, but would you say the HDZero goggles are visually a whole lot better than the module with a decent analog goggle? It's hard to say. Like, I was looking at the HDZero goggles versus the other OLEDs. It is definitely a nicer image overall. How much better? It's hard to say. Look, what I would say is this. You would not get a massive image quality bump from O4Xs with a module to the HDZero goggles. It isn't about image, it's about features. That would be a fair description. I'm not saying it doesn't look nicer, because I think it does. I genuinely think it does. But it's not enough to go and spend 500 quid on a set of goggles. If I use the O3 system with Crossfire, will it switch telemetry on 2.4 gigs? No. Okay, so as I explained in the video, my observations are that O3 will only ever enter 2.4 gigs mode when the remote controller version 2 is involved in the system. So if you're using your own remote link, it will only use 5 gigs. Do I have any system update for the V2 goggles to stop the binding problem between O3 mode, DIY mode? Joe, I think it is Joe Ferdinand's, that will never be fixed. The binding issues, okay, on the O3 remote, so when you have to rebind to use it with the Avata, the O3 air unit, or the DIY air unit, and the V2 goggles between the modes will never change. It's just DJI's poor software implementation. They're down a road they can't get out of easily on that now. Now, they fixed that largely with the goggles too, but the remote issue is still there because it's a legacy product, but the chances are you won't ever see that change. There you go, Mike. Yeah, I think it's minimal image, but it's better, a dramatically better experience. Thoughts on the new Emax Transporter 2s? Yeah, I've not tried them. For those who haven't seen, Emax have a set of Transporter 2 goggles, box goggles for HDZero. I think they're nice. I think it was a shame there's no HDMI input or output on them, whichever one. Which one would I want? HDMI output would have been fantastic. Genuinely, I think HDMI output would have been really, really handy for people. I think it's a good thing to have. No, a little bit. I have spoke about ENF. If you've got any questions on it, please do put them in. We'll talk about it properly in a minute, though. I don't think it's worth me running out to order a set. I'd like to try them. If Emacs want to send me a set, I would love to take a look. I don't think they're particularly exciting. I don't think they're particularly bad. I think it's a nice option. I genuinely think it's a nice option. It replaces the Scout HDs, which I actually really liked. I've got the Scouts here. I think the Scouts are a good goggle. Riz, I am about to put my Walksnail VRX on the Cobra X Black. Should I not? I know of no reason you should not today. I genuinely can't give you one. If anyone has specific data on the Avatar VRX blowing HDMI ports, can you let me know? And I'll try, and then I'll try and get it on the Spectrum on the oscilloscope this week at some point. An update how to update a Vista to O2 goggles would be handy for me. I have done that, Kerry. I think I have done that already. That is in my O3 video. What's my opinion on replacing the FC from a 405i flight to a SpeedyBee F722? Really an upgrade? I don't really think any flight controller change is an upgrade. I'll be honest. I change a flight controller when it's burned out, or I want to test it. I don't change a flight controller for any other reason. Or you need more UARTs, or you need better back, or you need something else. Changing the flight controller in itself is not going to make you fly better unless it's got a bad gyro. It's that simple. Don't waste the money. Buy more props. Will the DJI Goggles 2 work with the original DJI FPV drone? No, not at this time. We don't know if it ever will. Sorry, Sean. Okay. If there are any more questions, we'll come back in a minute. Both got V2 goggles in audience mode, connects to O3 unit, not working. Yes, if you're using O3, there are quirks around audience mode. There are definitely quirks around audience mode. The reason is O3 is H.265, the goggles version 2 are H.264. The last time I checked this is if you want to use spectator mode with O3, you have to have the version 2 goggles as the primary goggle and then the goggles 2 as the spectator. That, I think, is how it works currently. When I used the included mini HDMI cable from the my HDZero VRX with my Skyzone 030s, I got an inverted red and blue colors. When I used the same goggle and a mini HDMI to with my Avatar VRX, it worked. When I used the same goggles and mini HDMI cable with my Avatar HDMI, it works. HDMI is a weird connection at times. You can get some really strange behavior on HDMI. No inverted colors. That's weird. Ramdonko, our company's breaking up the hobby. Sorry to be a bit heavy. Is competition good with such low user frequency? There's a lot of competition right now with this. And look, this is a really good thing. This is really great to see. I think their goggles are very good. Look, genuinely, I do really like these goggles, apart from the absolutely shocking anti-fog in performance. But at least they've got anti-fog in, unlike the DJIs that don't have anything at all. Whereas this is a really good option for people because they can use this with any set of goggles they want. And I haven't tried it yet. It's probably going to be a week or so before I get a chance. Genuinely, the feedback I've got on 100 Hertz mode on the HDZero goggles is it's as good as theirs, which is really good. Really good. Why would you not choose these goggles in this combination when it also allows you to use HDZero? It also allows you to use analog. It's a no-brainer. It genuinely is a no-brainer at this point. Yeah, that's what I want to do, is I want to do a comparison between the two. I'm going to be honest with you. I am not going to be the person to tell you if the latency is really massively different. I fly so much different stuff. Latency, I just get used to quickly. I don't care about latency unless I have to count to 5 until something happens. That's the point I start caring about latency. But before that, I really don't. Like, you know, using this on an old goggle will make a difference because the HDMI latency and the screen latency will have an effect. Remember, some goggles will cache the image. Not cache isn't the right term, but they'll store the image in the frame buffer probably for about maybe 1 full frame, 16, 20 milliseconds. And then that's going to have an effect. Is it possible to make a ground station with DJI? Not easily. MoEFPV, thank you, my friend, for the super chat. Best True RC antennas for the DJI O3 Air unit. I don't believe there's a dedicated set today, but I do believe Hugo is working on a set. I don't think he's announced them yet or showed them, but I've heard a whisper that there is a set of antennas coming from True RC for O3. But they're not here yet. Will I taste it? Yeah, I'll test it on both to see if there's any difference. Michelangelo, what is can I tell the difference? Can I please explain the difference between 10, 20 and 40 hertz with O3? Okay, so what they are is the carrier bandwidth. I can actually show you this because I had the video queued up with that on. Right, okay, so the carrier bandwidth is the space the carrier is taking up on the band. So when you're sending data, the way FDM carriers works is there are actually lots of little signals being transmitted. If you think about old analog, we had one little signal, one little spike. That was our carrier and that was our information, and that was analog information on the band. With digital, you have this big like wide block of data. Just to show you that wide block of data, it's right behind my head. It's this big thing here. That is the carrier, but that carrier is actually made up of lots and lots of little carriers, lots of little individual ones. So we put them all together, we take the data and spread it over all of those carriers. So the bandwidth you're seeing, right, is the amount of space on the band that it is taking up. Very simply, 40 megahertz is the 40 megahertz width of that carrier on the band. So for instance, if you were transmitting on 5.80 gigahertz directly, with a 40 megs carrier, it would be 20 megs either side of that. So you'd be transmitting on 20 megs above, 20 megs below. That's the very basics. So the carrier width is the amount of space for the data. Now in DJI O3, it comes out as follows. 50 megabits mode, which is how much data you're transmitting a second, takes up 40 megahertz of carrier width. 25 megabits a second takes up 20 megahertz of carrier width. And in O3, we have a new mode, which is 10 megahertz, which is about 15 megabits a second max carrier. 15, 16, I think it is. It might be 14, somewhere around there. So the system chooses the carrier that best suits its needs. Now, on a completely open and empty band, the wider the carrier, the more data it can transfer, the better the image will look. However, on a congested band, the less space there is. So for instance, if I just switch here, that image there is really good. This image here, this carrier here is a 40 megahertz DJI carrier. This carrier here is a 20 megahertz carrier, so you can see the size and space difference on the band. The very basics are, the wider the carrier, the more data you can transfer to it, the better the image quality. The reason DJI have multiple carriers is, as the signal reduces, it then reduces the carrier width because it takes up less space on the band, and that helps the signal travel further because there's less data transmit and more of it will make it through, and then it will just drop it down, so it will start at 40 megs, 20 megs, 10 megs. Hello, Bruce. How are you? Why is Avatar better on 25 megabits than on 50? That is very complicated. This all comes down to MCS rates. It's not just about data. It's about the amount of error correction. It's about the amount of data that is being used to back the system up as well. The thing to understand is there is a portion of a digital signal which is used for error correction. Okay? So a portion of it is full data, a portion of it is error correction. The more data you transmit, the more error correction you need. It isn't always the case that a larger carrier will actually hold more data and look better. It gets very, very complicated. The term we'll use is, because all of these systems are based off LTE, it's called MCS rates. And it becomes a very complicated explanation, because we then start jumping into the world of QAM 64, QAM 128, 256, and then all the way down to QPSK and all of the different modulation types that digital systems use. But the very basics are, in theory, in the right setup, the wider the carrier, the more data that can be transmitted. Therefore, the less compression is needed on the image. Therefore, the better it should look. The very basics is that. But that isn't always the case. A poorly tuned system could look worse with a larger carrier than a better. And it will have an effect on how the signal breaks up. It'll have an effect on how much range you've got. Because a wider carrier can transmit more data, but there's more chance of that data having errors over longer distances than there is a smaller carrier that transmits the data faster with less error correction. It is literally one of the most complicated subjects there is. It really, really is. It's extremely complicated. You know, the easiest way to think about it is water in a pipe, is the term I always use. The bigger the pipe, the more water you can pump through it. But how much of that water, because of the bigger pipe, do you lose in the joints? It's really quite simple. It's magic. Yeah, that's the easiest term to use, Bruce. That's the easiest term to use. It's really quite simple. It's just magic. Yeah, I like that. I do like that. Is it ever possible for 100 megabits a second transmission? It's possible, but it's the latency at that point. You know, we got 50 now. You're only talking doubling it. You could get 100 megabits on twice the latency. Coast to coast, the more you explain, the more you understood. Yeah, it's a rabbit hole we'll never get out of if I go too far, but it's a complicated... A properly tuned system basically should give you better image quality for more bandwidth. It's as simple as that. But in radio, there is always a compromise. There is always a downside. There is no free packed lunch in RF. Still prefer to fly with a... Yeah, and look, 10 megabits can look really good. But you're using more compression at that point. If you're interested in understanding certain things, go search up LTE MCS rates. That'll start giving you a bit of a picture of how it all works out. Okay, guys, so the Avatar VRX module, just on that. So I'm going to be testing it over the next couple of weeks. We're going to be doing all of the tests, hopefully, and I'll give you some opinions. I think, yuck, you're going to get reviews left, right, and centre on this. JB's going to do his, others are going to do his. Look, whether... I'll give you an opinion. I'm not going to spend too much time on that side. I'm going to dig more into the technical aspects as we always do. But I will give you an opinion on that as well. I really will, because it's interesting, and I think it's super interesting with the HDZero goggles. The biggest problem I'm going to have right now is the weather every weekend has been atrocious. Every weekend I've had like an hour to say, I'm going to go and take this for a quick flight. It has rained. Continuously. Biblically is the term I'd use. You got one for sale? Yeah, and there'll be people who get them for sale. Yeah, people will be really interested in buying them. They really will. So we've got that. Walksnail did also send me another one of these. I have got a new one because I burnt the first one out. I'm not going to make that mistake the second time. Now, what is interesting is the new one comes a little bit differently from the first one. The new one has the heat spreader removed. Now, I'll tell you something, a little bit of a secret, right? My first one came with the heat spreader installed. Let me just find the first one. I threw it in a box. There it is. There's the first one. Now, the first one actually came with the heat spreader on, but I was asked by Caddx to remove it because they're now shipping them without the heat spreader, which they are. But they're leaving the thermal compound on, which I think, I'll be honest, is a bit pee-poor. So you guys can see there that they've left the thermal compound after removing the heat spreader. Now, ooh, where's the focus? Come on, there you go. Now, the reason they're removing the heat spreader is you're getting better cooling performance without the IHS. Let me just tell that to behave. There we go. They're actually getting better cooling performance without the IHS. The IHS that comes on these as standard. In fact, I've still got one on the floor. Oh no, I've tidied up. I had one on the floor under my bench, the one I took off this, and I think I've put it in the bin now. But for those who've seen, they originally come, like it shows on the front of the box with the IHS. Now, the reason you have an IHS is to protect the silicon, because this is flip chip with the silicon on the top. And it means that it could be easily damaged. So you put an IHS on as a barrier between the chip and whatever cooling interface you're putting on top. But I'll be honest, there's no mechanical stress even in the standard VTX module. Where is my bench test one? Because I always have a bench test one. Here it is. I always have a bench test one. Look, even like this, there's no mechanical stress. This thing does not need an IHS. But what I understand is when they were shipping them with the IHSs on, it was overheating. And the reason for that is the IHS doesn't really act as a heat sink, and it acts really as a thermal barrier, and it prevents cooling of the chip. So what they're doing now is removing the IHS and shipping them out without that on board. But what they're not doing is clearing off the thermal compound. Now, that was completely covered. Where you can see that little chip was when I did it, when I actually just opened the box for 10 seconds and had a look. Now, that will come off with a bit of isopropyl alcohol. But I just thought it was a bit poor that it's left there, if I'm honest. I thought they could have taken it off to block the light. Nah, I don't think they're doing that, Bruce. I can't see that. I don't think they're going into that level. I'm not convinced of that. Reboot it with Xeon Flash. Yeah, like the old things. But yeah, so I have a new one in after I burnt the first one out. And yes, I had thrown it in a box because it was dead. I did that. I don't think I did. So they sent me another one. So thank you, Caddx. I do appreciate it. Massive thank you. It was dead. Yeah, it was dead. Unfortunately, it died on a bench power supply. The Walksnail VRX does not come with a goggles mount. No, you need to make your own. You do need a 3D printer. Do I think Walksnail can get to the same level as O3? No. End of. Categorically not. O3 is a two-part system now. So O3 is using the P1, and it has a much more powerful system processor. Whilst the chipset that Walksnail is using is more powerful than the P1, I don't believe it's anywhere near up to the level of the E3T that DJI are using. It's just not the. I don't think it is anyway. I just don't think it is. So I just don't think it'll happen. Any news on DJI supply chain issues? Ongoing. I think the term to use is China supply issues. Look, things are pretty bad over there still. We wish everyone over there the best. You know, I know some companies I deal with over there, and it's not easy. It genuinely has not been pretty for them, and they're going through a lot. So yeah, it's not so much DJI as China. Yeah, you know, Bruce makes a really interesting question. The real big question is, do we really need O3 level of performance? Okay, O3 is fantastic, unbelievable penetration. Overall, flying image quality is good. Image breakup is fantastic. Where it lacks, though, is this dark, very contrasty, very lacking in dynamic range image. And that's where it struggles compared to the others. Now, we've had the new firmware, which is released, that allows you to improve things slightly. I still think their AGC is poor. I don't think it's dynamic range. I think their automatic gain control needs more work. It's too slow. It needs to react much, much faster. Much, much faster. It's reacting like a camera drone. It needs to react like an FPV drone. You don't want AGC on a camera drone to shift fast because it will ruin images. So if there's a sudden change in something, you don't want the AGC to instantly, adjust. Whereas I think O3 is behaving too much like a camera drone and not enough like FPV on its AGC control. I don't think it's the lack of dynamic range. I think it struggles a little bit, but overall, I think the AGC is the problem. If the AGC was more reactive, you'd have a better result from it. How come DJI's website gives a smaller frequency range? I have no idea. Are you comparing it in manual mode? If they are, they're wrong, because I tested it myself. I wouldn't be shocked if they've got the specs wrong. Because that chart is based off actual testing. I sat there and went through every channel and measured it on the spectrum analyzer. Tom T, dumb question. Do I need to format SD card for Walksnail as MSFAT, or can I format as macOS? You should use exFAT or FAT32 or FAT. Don't use Mac. Mac will screw it over. Always does. Both V2 goggles in audience mode connected to O3 unit, not working. I've not tried V2 to V2. I only have one set of V2s, I'm afraid. I can't tell. As long as they're both updated, as long as they're both in O3 mode, there's no reason it shouldn't work. If it isn't working, it's possible it's a bug in the DJI system. I haven't got two pairs of V2s to test. I can test goggles 2 to V2, but I can't test both. I don't have two sets of V2s. Fast moving detail. Yeah, Bruce, you got a good point there with Avatar. It is very nice in the slower stuff. Definitely. We could do a poll, but I'll be better doing a poll on the channel. I'll do a poll on the channel at some point this week. That'll be interesting to do a digital poll. The O3 image is outstanding. And look, there are some problems coming up on the O3 image. We're getting more and more people with vibration issues on the frames. We're getting more and more problems like that. I think you're seeing more and more frame manufacturers go down the road of looking at different frames and stuff as well. Like, you've got the new SpeedyBee, which I've got here. I haven't built it yet. I haven't built this into a quad yet, but we've got the new SpeedyBee frame, the one I did do you guys a review on. I think it's a really nice frame. It is that longer style frame. Let me just span out. And I have a video of this if you want to see it, but it is that longer style frame. You're going to need the extension cable for this. More like Roma in length. If you compare it to the original SpeedyBee frame, I was a big fan of the original SpeedyBee frame. Let me just find it. Here we go. And let me find the Roma. There it is. Okay. So this is the original Speedy B frame. And if I just put this, nose to nose, the original Speedy B frame finished there. So that's how much longer this frame is than the original Speedy B one. It is a lot longer. You've got an extra inch at the back. You'll always notice an inch at the back. But if we compare it, you'd always notice an inch at the back end of anything. Whereas if I compare it to the Roma, it's actually longer than the Roma. It's actually a little bit longer than the Roma. The Roma finishes about there, so it is a very long frame. A very long frame indeed. But you've got this. There's lots of other frames coming. I have the original Speedy. Yeah, I got digital in there, Bruce. I got a DJI in the original one. I do like the original frame, but I'm not a big fan of long frames. Like here, this is an iFlight frame. I think this is the iFlight. Is this iFlight? Yeah, it's got to be an iFlight frame. I can't remember which one this is. I do like this frame, iFlight. Again, that finishes up there. So still a lot shorter. I think this is an iFlight. Is that an iFlight frame? Anyone recognize this? Can't see an iFlight logo on it. I think it is, though, isn't it? I don't know which one it is. But it's got silicone mounts on the front as well. I'm sure that's an iFlight frame. Pretty sure it is. And then, obviously, Evoke. It's not the Evoke, I don't think. Is that the original? No, I don't think it's the Evoke. It might be the Titan. That rings a bell. It might be. I think... Let me just check. I bought it as an iFlight frame. GPS was iFlight on that? No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It looks like the iFlight logo. It's a U-Blocks logo. It does look like the iFly. Titan for sure. Nazgul has diff arms. Yeah, Titan rings a bell. Titan definitely rings a bell. Drone frames. They still do the Titan, do they? Or have they replaced them all now? They may have replaced them. Yeah, I think it was the Titan. It's a nice frame. I really like it. I really like it. And then you've got, obviously, the Evoke, which is a fantastic quad. I don't know. I'll be honest. I need to build that one up. I might strip something else apart to build that up. I think they stopped. Yeah, Titan DC5 a few months back. Yeah, it's a really nice frame. I do like it. I'm getting to the stage where I don't need to build any more 5 inches. I've got 5 inches falling out. And then I've got Chris Ross's, which is just fantastic, which is up there behind me for those who can see it. The AOS 5. I am a massive fan of the AOS 5. It's just a phenomenal drone. It's at the the problem is I've built a bunch of really good 5-inch drones and I don't really want to break them down. Are the Brits going for Chris Rosser frames? All the other stuff foreign. We like Chris Ross's frames. Genuinely, Chris's is some of the nicest frames I've had. There's so many good frames out there today. There really is. So before yeah, I got an AOS 5 version 2 at the back and it's just phenomenal. But I need to order the new front plates for the 03 because I want to put 03 in it. I want to convert that one to 03. I've got my only flyable 03 bird right now is the Nazgul. It's fantastic. It's just fun. Genuinely is fantastic. Genuinely is fantastic. Now, before I move on to a couple of other things, I just want to answer a few questions about the video I put out a couple of days ago. Sorry. Now, before I move on to a couple of other things, I just want to answer a few questions about the video that I put out yesterday on the 03 and the antennas. And there's been a lot of questions over this 5 gig antennas for 2.4 gigs input. I need to do some more testing on the analog side, how analog affects O3, but I still don't see this 5 gig antenna thing being a major issue. I just don't. And there's a real interesting comment that JB made, and I sort of touched on it in my video, but I didn't stress on it too much, and that is that the benefit of 5 gigs antennas for video performance may massively outweigh the losses using a dual band antenna and outweigh the benefit you'd get from using dual band on the remotes. It's very complicated. And look, it's just not as simple as saying what's better to use, 2.4 gigs dual band antennas on the drone or 5 gigs. The very simple reality is there are not any decent large amounts of 2.4 gigs and 5 gigs antennas out there. We're really limited to 5 gigs antennas, whatever we want anyway. So look, I like to ship in 5 gigs antennas. People shouldn't worry about that. Unless you're having RC issues, don't worry about it. My advice is, if you're worried about this, don't use the DJI FPV remote. I still stand by the fact of, whilst this new DJI FPV remote offers some nice functionality, choose a dedicated remote system like Express ELRS. Just don't worry. It is not worth all of the hassle, right? Worrying about antenna choice, worrying about all this. Bin the DJI remote system, use a proper remote system that gives you the control, the ability to outfly the video, and the ability to be able to trigger failsafe when you want it and stay in control. Not rely on DJI's system. That's my advice. My advice to you is, there's all this hoo-ha on, should manufacturers be shipping drones with 5 gigs only antennas if they're using the DJI remote system? They don't have a lot of choice, because there isn't a lot of dual band antennas out there that are going to offer any decent performance on a quad. The only dual band antennas really that have been released were for the V2 goggles. They were never for the air units. There aren't dual band antennas out there that are going to be any good on the back of a quad. So manufacturers only have the option of using the O3 antenna or the single band ones. Now, the O3 antenna, whilst is dual band, is heavily compromised. And the question remains today is, are you better using the O3 antenna dual band than using 5 gigs antennas and taking the hit on RC performance? The answer to that, we just don't know. It's something that could be tested fairly easily. Someone wants to do it, do it. Use the DJI remote system, put the O3 antenna on, take it for a fly, see what loses first, see what happens, and do the other ones and see what the results are. I don't think it's going to be great, and I don't think it's going to be worth worrying about. What I wouldn't say is fair is to be harassing manufacturers that they're making wrong choices. Yeah, okay, I know what you're meaning. Your setup isn't exactly stock, Wes, all right? It's compromised overall. It's good enough for most people. Why not use separate antennas, 1 for 5, 1 for 2 per? Didn't it? Yeah, it just, and that's the problem, Bruce. They haven't done it. They've got two 5 gigs ports. To be honest, they would have been much better of having a third port on that air unit for the 2.4 gigs than all of this hassle. They'd have been much better having a third port with a wire antenna out of it that you could change for one of the many Express ELRS ones that are on the market. They really would have. And then lock the remote onto 2.4 gigs. I'll be honest. I did want to test using separate antennas, but Wes lost his plane. I'll be honest. I think DJI should probably lock the remote to 5 gigs. I'll be honest. They should probably lock O3 to 5 gigs. This is the solution I think they should do. They should lock the O3 air unit to 5 gigs and give the user the manual option of putting it into 2.4 gigs mode, or sorry, dual band mode, but default it to be locked in 5 gigs mode. This solves all of the problems. The remote will still, in all likelihood, outfly the video in 5 gigs because it's a much smaller signal. They would have been far better locking the remote onto 5 gigs as well, and then allowing 2.4 gigs option as a setting in the menu, and it would solve all of these problems. All of these problems would go away. Oh yeah, and I forgot then Wes lost it and then boom, went out. Have they replaced that, Wes? Not boomed one out. It boomed itself out, didn't it, Wes? burnt itself out. Hey, Brandon, how are you doing? Right, guys, a couple of things before I finish up tonight. Right, so that's the situation, as I've said there. DJI remote antennas are also dual band. There's 2 antennas in there. Yes. Okay, a couple of things before I finish up. Now, as I've said, things are going to be a bit slower for some time with regards to content. Time is limited right now for me being able to test things. Ooh, that was weird. But I will still be doing as much as I can, but it gets out when it gets out. Now, another quick subject I just want to cover is 3D printers. Now, I'm really interested in knowing people's posts because I've been doing a lot of printing recently, and I've actually been testing the Sonic Pad. For those who haven't seen, from Creality, Sonic Pad is a clipper upgrade for the Creality printers. I really like this. It's a bit of a faff to set up originally, I'll be honest, and there's a bit of tuning needed. But this is very cool. For those who don't know, Clipper is a firmware upgrade for 3D printers. This is a device that has Clipper on board. Clipper is a modern software for 3D printing, rather than the old 8-bit software based on Marlin. And Clipper upgrade, I've been testing this on my Ender 3S1, and actually I really like this. I think it's a good device. I really like the interface. I really like the fact that I can connect to it at any time. So for instance, if I go on my network, it's probably on as we speak. There it is. It's wireless, it's connected. I can upload prints to it at any moment in time. That is live now on the network. It's over there, and I could kick it in if I wanted to. However, I have been looking at something new, and I have been looking at one of the Bamboo Labs printers. Now, if you don't know who Bamboo Labs are, they are a new 3D printer company who are made up of former engineers and managers from DJI. Now, there is transition here because one of their main guys, as I understand it, is the old Dr. T, Dr. Turbo, Dr. Propulsion from RC Groups. We've known him for a very long time, Teo. And he was one of the main product managers at DJI and chose to leave. In fact, I believe, if I'm right, the last time I spoke to him, he was also the man behind the Mavic, which is impressive, to say the least. Now, they've left, and we've got the Bamboo Labs 2 new printers, the X1, as well as the new P1P. And I have really fallen in love with the X1 series. Now, they are disruptive to the 3D printing industry at the moment. I'll be honest, they are feeling a lot like DJI, but I'm really tempted on these. Now, I've just seen someone said, I love my X1C. You've got an X1 Carbon, you lucky man. Nice. Very nice. I am seriously tempted on one of these. It's not a bed slinger. For those who knows what a bed slinger is, it's a Core X and Y, which means the bed only goes in the Z-axis, a bit like my own old Flashforge Creator Pro, which I had years ago. It's got the multiple filament unit. This is a hell of a 3D printer, but I have seen some stuff I'm a bit worried about, if I'm honest, on the Facebook group. For those who haven't been following, it's not all sunshine and roses, I can promise you that. But this thing has some serious features, including LiDAR built in to measure the bed. Now, if we go down, you've got the module there, which allows you to, it's airtight, and it allows you to change filaments automatically, parallel 4x4, 2-stage feeding. It's got a filament buffer as well, which is fantastic. But it is a hell of a printer, and it's going to cause some problems for Prusa. Because, look, this model here, the full X1, right, the full Big Daddy in an enclosure, pre-built, is 1,450 quid, okay? But here's where they're really disruptive. they have released a cutback version called the P1P. Now, the P1P is the same printer. AH4 Bed Slinger is a printer that moves the bed forward and back. Call them a bed slinger because it slings the bed back and forth. The P1P is a cutback version of the X1. It doesn't have the LiDAR. It doesn't have the outside casing, but it is the same printer in many ways. They've cut corners here and there, but it's very DJI. The X1, right, is the high-end model. The X1 is the Mavic, the Mini 3 Pro, and this is the Mini 3, is what this is. And it is a hell of a printer for the money. 679 quid. Now, I'll be honest, I was astonished how dear the Prusas have got now. Without the LiDAR, I would go for a Volron. Volron is going to cost the same money as an X1 Carbon. The Volron is huge money. Without the LiDAR, the con of bad repairability, what weighs too hard. Apparently, the difference with the LiDAR isn't massive. 1.4K. I can imagine, yeah, I was going to say, Failsafe, your Volron is 1.4K. Yeah, and you built the Volron. Yours is lovely. Failsafe has a lovely Volron. For the full X1 Carbon, though, 1,400 quid. Now, the interesting thing with these is this is fully built. This is a microwave. It's out the box, ready to go. Now, my Mark III is a fantastic printer. I built mine, and I think I paid about 750 quid. But if you look at the price now, right, of a Mark III's, I'll be honest, Prusa has some real problems because all of these guys are 10-year-old printer tech. Look, let's not pussy a foot around this, right? The Mark III, as great as this printer is, right, is basically based on ancient software. Okay, their code is much better, but it's old tech. They're all using the same boards, derivatives of the basic motor drivers, the Rambo boards. They're all using the very basics. There's been no mass innovation in the market yet. And all of this is doing what we've always done. These new printers are the printer for the modern age. Now, I'm not saying it's open source because it isn't. You know, it is closed source. I love my Mark III. This thing, my Mark III, is fantastic. I start Sovol SV06 is a $250 Prusa Krone. I've not tried it. I love my Prusa. But I'll be honest, these guys, just look at, right, in the UK, look at the price. Right, a pre-built, because if we're going to do this, we're going to do pre-built, okay? So I want a pre-built. Is this the kit or is this the build? So this is the pre-built. Pre-built, 982 quid without the enclosure. So as it is there. Okay. The P1P is 679. That's incredible. MW Labs, I think my Carbon will ship in month or two. Yeah, look, you know, they are there is a long ETA on these printers at the moment. But with the enclosure, right, it's an extra 180 quid. With the enclosure, which looks, I'll be honest, the Mark III looks nice in the enclosure. It's 1,162 quid. This printer looks fantastic. This printer genuinely looks fantastic. The Mark III is a go-to printer. There's no question about it. And if you wanted the MMU as well, look, let's continue shopping. Parts and accessories. How much is the MMU kit now? Come on, where is it? I don't want parts. 3D printers. Where's the MMU? Where's the MMU as a standalone? It's not really a part. I just want the MMU as a kit. Where's... I'm not sure where you find the MMU as a kit on its own. There. I don't want the kit. I want to price the MMU. Go back. Can we find the MMU? Where's the additionals? Come on, there's got to be here somewhere. I don't want the... I don't want speeds. I want the original Prusa MMU. Ah, here we go. Upgrade kit. So it's another 229 quid. For the MMU. There you go. Another 229. Proceed to checkout. So the total would be... What are we talking here? Enclosure bundle. 229. Oh, it's 10% off the printer, look, if you get it with an MMU, which is 969. So it's coming in at 1189. But I am tempted. I'll be honest. I am seriously tempted on the Bamboo Labs. I sort of fallen in love with it. Have I been doing much with the SLA? Not a dramatic amount. I'll be honest. SLA is something I want to do a lot more with. It's hugely time consuming, right? And I just don't have it. I like resin printing a lot. I think the Creality resin printer I've got is very, very good. Genuinely, I think it's very good. The prints I've done on it have been fantastic. They have absolutely been fantastic. It's just a very time-consuming process. My clone sits next to an original Prusa and they are totally identical. Are they? Interesting, eh? I am really... that printer just looks... Go for the Lido one. Only has... Yeah, I think... If I was buying a first printer today, I'd be tempted on the P1P. I'll be honest. I'd have bought the P1P over the Prusa. Looking at that deal right now, I'd go for the P1P. Today, I don't really need a P1P. Today, I probably would be better with the X1 Carbon with the full setup. That would be my dream unit today. But I'm going to hold back. I flew my Boxer on the weekend. Oh dear. You like or not like, Bruce? I like the Boxer. I've done the CNC. I don't know when they're shipping, guys. Oh dear. I think, is Ian F. FPV, is the P1P a good 3D printer for beginners? Yes. I would probably say it is way too stiff for you, Shaky. Yeah. I would say it's probably one of the best out-the-box experiences today, the P1P. It is not, basic. It comes ready to go, basically, if you've never touched a printer before. The Prusa fully assembled would be worth a look as well. Even the Creality ones are good out the box, but they do require assembly. If you're in... Look, the S1 from Creality, the Ender 3 S1, is a frickin' bargain. It really is. It's a very, very good printer, the Creality S1. But it's a bed slinger again. Okay, guys. That is about it from me tonight. I have tried the 0.6 on the Prusa because I've got the E3D end, but I haven't used it a dramatic amount. 100% recommend the S1 and the Sonic Pad Duo. Yeah, 100%. Sonic Pad is just fantastic on the S1. Prints like a dream. Now, it does print very, very well. There's a bench, just to give you guys a quick one before I go. There's two beachies or benchies here. That's off the Prusa. I can tell because of the bed. And this is off... There's a little bit of stringing because my filament's wet. But that is the benchy off the Creality S1 with the Sonic Pad, which is running Clipper. Oh, the Wi-Fi doesn't work. That's weird. But yeah, look, that is very, very nice. It's hard to show on camera because it's black. But that is really nice. And that's off the Prusa. That is. There's a couple of zits on the sides. Other than that, it's almost as good. Yes, I have used input shaping. Yes. I've done the full setup. Yeah. Yeah, and look, they are two very, very good prints. Two very, very good prints. Here's some Z's. Let me just have a look at them. These are both off the Ender 3S1 with input shaping. I was doing testing on these just to see how they were. The Wi-Fi on mine has been genuinely perfect. Not an issue. But, yeah, it just looks absolutely astonishing. Absolutely. Look, you get it dialed in, it's nice. Which one's this? Let's have a look. There's a third one. I was doing calibrations on the Sonic Pad. These were fairly slow. I haven't pushed the speed on these. I did do some speed prints. I don't know where they are. I haven't done a speed benchy yet. But yeah, you get it dialed in and it's good. I've got my Prusa pretty much left on TPU now. The nice thing about having the second printer is the Prusa is basically on TPU all the time. I'm terrible. I don't put filament away. There's TPU on that printer that's been outside in this room for months. I don't keep filament dry. I don't keep it clean. I am far too busy to worry about putting filament away every time I use it. I just leave it out. Rightly or wrongly, I get a bit of string in. Wow, that's it. That's all I get. I get a bit of string in. I don't... There are people that will go to the nth degree on getting their printers dialed into the absolute perfection. I get them nice. I like the Z right. I like a bit more Z. I squish in a bit heavy on the Z. I tend to. It's just how I like it to make sure I get better adhesion. But other than that, let it crack on. And yeah, that's the results I get from it. Yeah, I've been 3D printing for a very long time. I'm not an expert in it at all, but I know my way around a 3D printer now. Haven't tried dialing anything in yet. Need them for prototyping. Yeah, look, I put the last upgrade I did on the Prusa was the Evo 3 end kit, so I've got the full 4 nozzles. So I got 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, and 0.8. 0.6 is probably a brill on a printer because it just through and just push everything out. I'd love to have more time on printers. The problem with 3D printing is I had my first printer in 2017, 16, 17. I bought my first 3D printer, I think. And it was great. And it was the worst thing I've ever had. And it was a FlashForge Creator Pro. I spent a lot of money on that printer. I spent about £1,000 on that printer when I first bought it. Dual extruder. And I ended up taking the second extruder off, grinding it flat because it was a pain in the ass. And I've just got into Clipper now. These were done on Clipper, Matt, on the S1. I've got the Sonic Pad, so I've got Clipper on there now. And I'll be honest, my FlashForge was amazing and difficult. There were times where it would print perfectly, and there were times where it would just completely screw up and not behave. It was never consistent. Never consistent. And that was the problem with the FlashForge. And I replaced the FlashForge with the Prusa, and it just blew my mind. Genuinely blew my mind. The Prusa is hand on heart an absolute appliance. I love that printer. I haven't touched the Z on it for about a year. The last time I touched the Z on the Prusa was when I probably changed the hot end. When I put the new hot end on. That was the last time when I put on the 3D hot end. I don't even change it on a nozzle change. I can change. I have tried all of those nozzles with the same Z. It's fine. Those aren't the E3D hot end is that accurate. I've not needed to change the Z for the hot end. They got it right with the Creator Pro 2, did they? Oh, the first one, FlashForge Creator Pro, was just horrific for me. I loved the printer, but it was horrific. Absolute horrific. Well, it's a MakerBot clone, isn't it? That's what it is. But it was a great print. I loved it, but it drove me mad. I sold it very cheap to a man. It's still probably going strong today because there was nothing wrong with it. Fixed low light latency. Nice. That's good news. But yeah, so I'm really tempted on one, but we're going to have to see. Right, guys, I'm going to call it a night. Hello, Louis. How are you? X1 carbon combo. That's what I want, Louis. That's what I want. Friend said the same thing. Did he? Just inconsistent. And I changed to the Prusa and it blew my mind. Yes, it can. Luba, it'll do 4 printers at once, I think. It will do 4. It has 3 USB ports, but I don't know if 4. I'm sure it can do 4. I just don't know if you can run multiples at the same time. Obviously not. It's very good for the money. Genuinely, the Sonic Pad. Just to be 100% clear, Creality sent it to me for free. I asked them. I reached out to them because they sent me the S1 and I'd seen all these comments on Clipper and I just said, would you be interested in sending it to me? I've tried the S1. I think it's a good printer. I'd be really interested in trying the Sonic Pad. And hand on heart, it took a bit of setting up. It's a bit of a faff. It's a bit of a faff having it external. But I'm going to print a bracket for the front of the printer. You guys can't see it. It's just sitting over there in the corner. You can just see the screen, actually. There you go. It is there. It needs. I'm going to mount a bracket for the front. They've got it on the end of 5 mounted on the front. I'm probably going to have a look at mounting it on the front. Probably on the top. I'll be honest. It'd go nice on the top. But the only real downside... I have my Sonic mounted on the top rail. Yeah, I was going to say top rail would be nice. Will it work with Prusa? It will work with many printers. I'm not sure if it'll work on the Prusa itself. I've not tried. You can attach many printers. I'm not sure on the Prusa, though. I wouldn't like to say. I think for the money, it's like 160 quid. It's a bargain. It's actually, and it's got Clipper, and it's got the software interface. Really nice. You know, you can just go on the web interface. Just like I showed. You know, I can go onto here. I can go on the web interface. You can upload your files manually. You've got your file list, look, which you can upload manually. You've got all of them. All of that stuff. Fairly straightforward. You've got all of the settings here. It's just easy. It's just easy. It really, really is. Prusa with MMU is nice, but to be honest, I don't think I'd mess with an MMU in the Prusa. If I wanted multiple, I would go on the X1 carbon and the full kit. If you're going to go down multiple route, I think you're going down that. If you also look at what you're getting on that X1, airtight filament chamber, you know, you're not getting any of that stuff on the Prusa. Remember that. You're getting a full airtight filament chamber. A lot of nice stuff there. So close. Right, gents. Before we go, I just want to say if the video's been useful, please do give it a like. I want to say thank you to everyone who spent a bit of time with me talking more nonsense on a Sunday night. I think right now the plan is for these to continue. We will see on that. Overall, I just want to say massive thanks to everyone who has supported things over the last period. It has been fantastic. I really do appreciate everyone. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone on Patreon as well. You know, the Patreon supporters have been amazing to the channel. They really have. As always, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will speak to you guys again soon. Now I've got to try and find that. There's no nice way to end a live stream. Just just isn't. There's just no easy way to do it. Anyway, stay safe. I'll speak to you soon. Number 1. Number 2.